Yes, indeed. What's happening, y'all? Welcome back to the Crash Bang Boom podcast. And if this is your first time, well, then just simply welcome. Got an awesome guest today in Pej Mon, who is the drummer with Secret Chiefs 3, who I was able to see recently on their tour. And good Lord, that is some crazy shit. He also plays in duo Girth. And he has his own band that he's looking to front, Satya Sena, which he's apparently going to be working on very much in 2018. We get into all kinds of crazy stories, talking about fractured backs and Frank Zappa, mastermind Trey Spruance's encyclopedic knowledge of music, and the importance of studying Indian rhythms and understanding the Indian musical vocabulary. Grohl John Bonham, Vistalite Drums, all kinds of good stuff. Shout out to my vinyl lovers, and in particular my sponsor, New Orleans Record Press. First locally owned and operated full-scale vinyl production house in New Orleans. So if you're looking to put out vinyl for whatever musical project you're involved in, go on over to NewOrleansRecordPress.com to get real-time quotes from their quote generator. Look at the myriad of coloring options, or even if, you want a clear one and whatnot, which it looks badass, by the way. So yeah, go on over to that website. Tell them Crash Bang Boom Podcast sent you. In any case, here we go. Pej Mon, y'all. Crash Bang Boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
Pej Mon, what's happening, man? It's good talking to you. Last time I saw you, you were at St. Vitus with Secret Chiefs 3. That was a hell of a show. I was sitting in the back there watching you go through all of those sporadic parts and herky-jerky, seemingly disjointed rhythms at times, and I just couldn't help but think, my God, if I was on this gig, I would be train wrecking this thing right now.
Oh, man. Yeah, well, I'm not immune to that outcome, I have to say.
I bet, man.
I've gotten on that train and I've fallen off that train in various places. Dude, yeah, it's the song structures are not conventional, and the parts are not conducive to. There's a lot of brain work. There's a lot of memorization that you got to do.
Oh my God, seriously.
So it's when you have a lot of parts that sound almost identical but they're slightly different,
right.
Like you add an eighth note, you swing the end of the phrase, you turn you turn the beat around, or you on purpose, or things like that it's just it's definitely a challenge, man.
Oh, dude, I hear you, man. Oh no, go ahead.
You just gotta have faith that you're gonna come back no matter what. Luckily, that only happened a couple times on the tour, but as long as you have faith, I feel like you can make your way back.
Right, I hear you, man. Well, speaking of Secret Chiefs 3, and we'll get into some of your other projects as well, like Girth. I was checking some of that stuff out, which is totally crazy. With Secret Chiefs 3, man, what was the process of learning some of the back catalog of that material, as well as like working out new stuff? How did that work out for you? I'm assuming that was a bit of a challenge.
Well, actually, for this, you're talking about this last tour?
Yes.
That we just did? So for this last tour, it was actually, I only had a month to prepare.
Ooh.
Because it was pretty last minute. I mean, I think Trey wasn't even planning on doing touring at this point with the Chiefs, and then the Dead Cross guys hit him up, and it seemed like too good to pass up. So he hit me up last minute about it, and we'd been kind of chatting for a while, trying to reconnect, and seemed like a good fit for this tour. But yeah, man, What was the process like? Geez. Some of the songs I knew years ago because I'd been playing with them like about 8 or 9 years ago.
Wow.
Or no, is that 8 or 9 years? Yeah, I guess so. 2007.
Yeah.
2007 and 2008, yeah. So some of those songs are still in the set list, and it's about half the tunes, and then half the tunes were new stuff. And then there was a bunch of stuff that I rehearsed that we never played live because we just didn't have enough time to rehearse all of the songs. But it was great to get back into it, man. Gotta say.
I hear you. What has the process been like with working with someone like Trey, who, you know, by all accounts, I would say has such an encyclopedic knowledge of music, especially more esoteric genres and whatnot. And did you have much experience with those other styles of music leading into working in with him, or was that its own sort of learning curve as well, sort of acquainting yourself with these various, you know, sort of esoteric styles?
Oh, dude. Well, I love playing, you know, Secret Chiefs 3 music. It's very inspiring to me because of Trey's just assimilation of different genres and his ability to also just make it his own and create new genres within that.
Yeah.
And just the mastery, like, within each genre. You know, he's not just, like, quoting something, you know, from a horror film. He's like creating a whole horror soundtrack that seems like, you know, he has that whole language down, you know. And he'll do the same with you know, mixing other styles too. And so I love that because for me, I'm such a, you know, I have like a very curious mind around like music and beats, and I love going into different genres, you know, like I love expanding. I love like just playing along to Indian music, Persian music, you know, any folk music anywhere, African, South American. Yeah. I love that. And then like even within, you know, metal, all the different genres of metal, even within, you know, even rock, even reggae, you know, funk. I love all of those styles. And and so it's a blast to be able to like and a challenge to be able to like have to play all those styles and play them, you know, in an authentic way, which is how Trey likes to do it. Mm-hmm. So what is it like? It's like I don't know. It's something that I do all the time anyways, you know? Like right. I'm always playing different. I'm always like vibing out on some funk stuff. Like I'll just get in a groove and just for a month, I'll only listen to Bootsy Collins, you know, or like 2 months. I'll just go super extreme. I'll go into his whole catalog, and you know, I'll like look into all the beats and play along to what he's doing, and I'll do that. So I'll just get into these grooves. So like when I join with the Chiefs, it's a little bit like doing that all at once.
Right.
But then even within that, Trey's just got this like weird, you know, he's doing a lot of like his own thing too. So that's a style in itself. And he's a great drum composer.
Right.
I don't know any, you know, drummers that are playing the beats that he writes, you know? Yeah. Just like naturally. He's got this like snare, kick drum interplay that's kind of out of this world. And it's super melodic, and the phrasing is just is great, and it's very dance. It's very danceable, even as it's like, you know, mind fucking you.
That's amazing. Yeah, man, I saw Trey with Mr. Bungle back in the day a few times when they came through New Orleans, and in particular the last tour that they did through there for the California record. I looked it up recently. Apparently it was August 17th, 1999. And that's when they came through. And I just remember to this day, I think it might have been the most incredible show I've ever seen because, you know, I never got to see Frank Zappa growing up in particular, like in the Apostrophe or Overnight Sensation or Live at the Roxy or any of that kind of crazy orchestrated and, you know, melding of various genres. And so Zappa was kind of the artist that I felt like was close to that. And since I never got to see him, it was great being able to see Mr. Bungle because I felt like I got to see sort of a continuation of that spirit. And my God, it was just so crazy witnessing that. Couldn't believe it.
I know, right? Yeah.
So that's awesome that you're playing with him. That's I was just curious because he's such a baffling talent.
He is, and a great history too. Yeah. So it's great to be connected and aligned with such an amazing history of music that him and his bands that he's been involved in have produced. So that's awesome.
Yeah, man. Now with your other band, Girth, and I was checking that stuff out, and that is more, I would say, full tilt metal with like grindcore noisy aspects to it, or at least that's sort of my, quick description of it. But
yeah,
what would be your what was like the metal gateway band for you? What got you into all this madness?
Well, I think that band was formed at a very particular time in my life where I had just graduated from university and with a jazz performance degree.
Oh, interesting.
And it was kind of a brutal time for me. I was very happy to be done with school.
Yeah.
And I was kind of over the jazz scene. And I was just wanting to blow it all to hell, I was just
right.
I wanted to go into the craziest, most extreme form of music that would really inspire me, because I was in this kind of coming from this academic environment that I felt I had to finish. So I was kind of waiting for it to end, and then when it ended, I just went into to find the wackiest, craziest, most avant-garde, things that I could find. And so that led me into like things like The Ruins, John Zorn, Naked City, and then into just all the extreme forms of metal, the black metal and grind and thrash. And I don't know if there's like specific bands, but it was just being a part of that experimental idea of like pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And that was really appealing to me, that music could be so shocking in a sense, and just so jarring, and it was like a wake up call.
Yeah.
And I think there was a scene in Seattle too at that time with the metal bands in the underground that were doing a lot of which is picked up now. Now there's a lot of like experimental technical stuff that's pretty like bands are getting a lot of recognition for that kind of thing. But in the early 2000s, it was a super inspiring place to be. So I was definitely influenced by a lot of the local bands in Seattle. There was Abadox, Golgotha and Sunrise, Lesbian. They kept playing for a long time. I don't know, a lot of the local scene though, yeah, and a lot of the jazz scene too, even the experimental free jazz. I got into like John Coltrane's Interstellar, his Interstellar album, the one with Rashid Ali, and it was just like free jazz interpretations of planets, right. Like here's 12 minutes of Venus, here's 10 minutes of Mars, and they're just going nuts, and I just thought it was the best thing ever. So the band was basically like trying to capture that craziness, but in a controlled way. So we did have freakouts, and sometimes we would like play shows where we just ditched our set and just fucking played whatever, and it was just chaos and just destroyed our instruments or something. But
wow.
But most of it was pretty calculated, and it was like calculated, brutal, take it as far as you can intensity.
Well, that was that kind of leads me to one of the questions I was going to ask you. It does sound like you did study at some point, but prior to going to college and studying it on that end, what led you to the drums in the first place?
Oh man, well, what led me to the drums? Jeez, spirits,
Yeah.
guides. I'm not really sure. It's just I'm kind of a frenetic person, you know, with a lot of energy, moving around a lot. Actually, you know what? You know what it was? It was it was I was playing basketball. I had this dream of being a basketball player. And I was into music, but I was kind of like I just loved playing basketball, and so I was like, that's what I'm going to be. And I just spent all my time like practicing and being at the gym and shooting, and that was okay. It's not like I was that great, but I loved it. And but then at a game, actually, like I got pushed from behind and I fell down and I fractured a bone in my back, actually.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so I had to wear this awkward like plexi brace for like about I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months. I don't know. It was pretty extreme.
Damn.
Yeah. And so I was kind of sitting like very erect, upright, like all the time, and it was just this like bulky thing that stuck out. It was awful, it was like high school time, super self-conscious or whatever.
Right.
You're just walking around with this like chest brace.
Were you as tall like in high school as you are now? Because for those listening to this, how tall are you, man? Like 6'4", 6'5"?
6'4", yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was about that. I was almost there.
Wow.
So out of that, I couldn't play basketball anymore, but I still had like all this energy, and so it just translated straight into drum set. I just and like just annoying your neighbors and
So did you go to your parents and say, "Hey, I'm interested in playing," and then at some point or another you got a kit put together, and then you're making all the racket in the house? Is that the way it pretty much went?
Kind of. I mean, I already had the kit at that point. I wasn't like all into it,
Oh, okay.
I was passionate about music, but I didn't think that that's what I wanted to do. It was just like what I loved. Yeah, I mean, my first instrument was tuba.
Oh, wow.
When I was in, I don't know, second or third grade, whenever it is, you start a band,
Yeah.
And that's my embarrassing start to music. Not there's anything wrong with the tuba, but
right.
Man, it was awkward. I had to carry that thing to school every day.
Oh,
That's
man.
heavy. So I switched to snare drum because I was like, hey, I don't have to carry that. They have that at the school.
Wow, that's amazing. And you were interested in it enough at that level, I guess, in high school or whatever, to continue all the way with doing it academically in college. But it is interesting that through studying jazz and whatnot collegiagally, and I took drum lessons and studied. I didn't major in it or anything like that, but studied with had drum instructors my whole time in college as well. And I guess I don't know that I necessarily had like a rebellious reaction to it, so to speak, once I got out, kind of like how you did with going into extreme forms like you did. But I did find that I didn't really have a sense of what I had studied until I kind of just let it go, and sort of physically things or patterns or whatever, stuff that I had studied sort of naturally permeated my playing. It was kind of like, because it starts off so cerebral, I think, that it's hard to even kind of enact what it is that you've been studying and flooding your mind with,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and even at that time, they'll tell you like, for music degree, you got to take keyboards and, voice training and, you have to compose stuff too, even if you're a drummer. So I was doing that stuff, but I wasn't quite inspired to do it. You know what I mean? Right. Like I was kind of forced through the requirements,
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of teachers throughout the years, and I've come to appreciate what a good teacher is,
Right.
And I don't think I had that at the time when you're in those kind of big mass universities, there's just this like generalized system that doesn't take into account the individual and where they're at and what's like inspiring for them. It's just about like, okay, here's the tradition and get on board because this is the proven method. And so I tend more towards like individualized, and private instruction, which is awesome. Like I took some tabla lessons for a while. My tabla teacher, I thought was one of the best teachers I've ever had because he was catering all the lessons to exactly where I was. It was exactly the knowledge that I needed at the time. I was fully inspired, and he was leading by example, and it was all a very organic process. That it wasn't. So there is in tabla there is a lot of complexity to it, but even through that complexity, the way he taught it was not just fun, but it made it easy because it was just going to the next step, then the next step, and then always staying inspired and practical, which I definitely didn't experience in other avenues.
I bet. Did you, I'm assuming as well, the whole way of counting in Indian music is such an interesting thing. And I think once you really get a grasp of it, not that I have a grasp of it, but one of my old roommates was a tabla teacher as well and played sarod and was generally just sort of obsessed with sort of Indian and Eastern instruments and stuff. And every now and again, he would talk about the way to count and different stuff like that. And I always thought it was so interesting because it was more like less numeric based, even though it's still based on numbers and counting it, but it's more of it's like sounding out. It's like syllables or something. It was a really interesting way. And at some point or another, I need to delve back into it because I could see that it would be really beneficial and I think enhance a lot of creative outlets to have a better understanding of how to count that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Indian classical tradition of tabla is a very deep rhythmic study. I mean, it totally changed my playing and in a lot of ways. But I love, in particular, I love the vocalization of everything. You see them, you see tabla players playing, and it looks like their hands are just like lightning speed fast, you're not even comprehending what they're doing, and they can actually sing every single note that they're playing, and that seems ridiculously hard to comprehend, but that is a fact. So it's great for rhythmic phrasing. The rhythmic phrasing of tabla music is just unparalleled, I think, in the world. I haven't found anything that's like as poetic and deep in terms of rhythmic expression.
Right.
So that is amazing. And so to be able to do that in time and and to go along with their they've just developed a training to develop that level of complexity,
right,
and make it natural and it works. So it would really benefit everyone. I mean, I feel like tabla is going to be more integrated. It's a kind of one of those inevitable future things,
right.
I feel like, where that kind of style of learning rhythms will be more commonplace in the future for anyone who's exploring rhythmic ideas,
right,
on any instrument.
Well, going back to kind of getting out of school and studying jazz and whatnot, it's interesting. I could see, I guess, to some degree, just because of your sort of rhythmic vocabulary, that you might have studied jazz, but you're a pretty hard-hitting dude. So was that also a reaction to getting out of studying jazz, or had you sort of been embracing some of the harder hitters all along, or how did you sort of develop that sort of physical style that I would say that you play with?
Soul salvation, I guess, man. Needing an outlet, you know?
Yeah.
Being really frustrated, feeling not understood. Music was definitely therapy for me, and drumming in particular was like a catharsis because growing up, I just felt like I wasn't, like I couldn't find my place. I couldn't figure out how to be natural, and it was just a lot of pent up feelings, and so drumming was like an absolutely needed outlet, and my first influence was Dave Grohl,
Right.
So when you have that, I was reading an interview even before I got my set. I don't know, I was obsessed with Nirvana,
Yeah.
and Dave Grohl was like, yeah, I played on pillows, and that helps expand my strength.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. So I can just do that even before I had a set. So even before I had a set, I just had sticks and was like, okay, well, I'll start building my muscle, and then once I get drums, like, it'll be easier.
Right.
That was what I thought, and so I just started doing that and just playing along to all the albums that I love just on my pillows at first, and yeah, I don't know. Eventually, it's just kept evolving as a necessary like thing that turns me on. That's what excites me, is to like be fully engaged.
Well, man, yeah, and it's interesting too as well because one, you have a pretty interesting setup. I don't know how that changes from project to project, but I love it that you play Vistalites. I too have a set myself, but I'm assuming you're a John Bonham fan.
Yeah, of course.
Is that what led you to Vistalites?
Bonzo. Maybe so. Yeah, maybe. I think that influence definitely crept in. I mean, I saw like the Led Zeppelin DVD was like my nightcap every night, and so it just subliminally told me that I need to get Vistalites.
Right.
I was also, of course, I was really attracted to anything as loud as possible. That was the theory, So I thought I found that Vistalites were really loud and punchy, and I just wanted, because with Girth, actually, we would play a lot of these underground spots, and sometimes they'd have mics on the drums, and sometimes they wouldn't. And so it was always about how to get the natural drumming sound to be as loud as possible, So play as loud as possible, and then tune your drums as loud as possible, and then find the loudest drums,
Yeah.
So try to compete with, all these like crazy amps that are, and the guitar player in that band, Dave, was great, and his guitar setup, he'd have like 3 or 4 cabs, just placed like on either side of me, and so it was a lot to compete with.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Now with I mentioned setup for a second there. I know like with Secret Chiefs 3, you don't play a rack tom. You've got floor toms on the opposite sides of you, a double bass kit and a snare in the middle, and lots of sort of ornamental percussive devices.
Yeah.
Does your setup change from Girth to Secret Chiefs 3?
Oh man. Well, the rack tom, the deletion of the rack tom is a pretty recent thing that actually happened at a gig that I was playing with this band Genocide Skin. We were playing a show, and during the show, the rack tom stand fell apart.
Wow.
And the rack tom just like fell down, and then I was like, okay, I have to figure something out here. I have to be able to play the rest of this set. It was in the middle of the set, so I couldn't do anything. And so I just finished the set without a rack, and I liked it. and so and I was like, so it was kind of an embracing of the random. And so it's stuck now, and I have 2 floor toms. So I have one on the right and one on the left, and so that's kind of enough. And that was kind of what evolved out of doing the tabla stuff on the drums. Because if you look at tabla, they have 2 drums, right? You have the right, which is the high. The right hand is playing on the higher pitch drum, and the left hand is playing on the lower. And so you have these phrases where you're hitting both at the same time. So you have a high and a low. And so it was important for me to be able to play a snare with a tom on either side of the kit at the same time. So So that kind of developed out of that. It was easier to play the phrasing that way. And then it just kind of stuck. And but the set I use with the Chiefs is basically what I use. Although Trey's like really obsessed with the tambourine.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to not have the rack there, because I can put the tambourine right there and it's super accessible, and I can get my brutal tambourine on.
Yeah, seriously. That's funny, man. Well, let me ask you this: outside of drumming, I see that you have this website, InfinitePowerCoaching.com. Tell me a little bit about that, and how did you get into it? And I like the initial sort of synopsis or superficial understanding that I have of it, I guess, with the idea that you could lead someone to be more focused on their individual experience and reconnecting with maybe what they were meant to be, or access their best potential. Am I off?
No, I think that's pretty good. It's transformational coaching, how basically the tools to change your life according to and put yourself in alignment with your highest self, and this kind of really resulted out of a necessity for me, as like I needed to basically deprogram a lot of the ideas and beliefs within me that just weren't who I really am, in order to be able to be more natural as my real self, and I feel like, because growing up in society, not necessarily so supportive of individuality,
sure.
And there's a kind of shepherding of people into generalized situations, and that's been a passion of mine, to just be as natural and be myself as much as possible. And so I was seeking the tools out for myself, and the more I just kept doing it, I'm kind of obsessed about that idea of the most powerful transformation. I want to be completely in line with myself, and just be able to like divest of anything that's not inspiring to me.
Right.
And so that led me to just become a coach, because I've just loved doing it so much that I just ended up studying how to do it, and then just meeting with clients and finding, oh wow, well this is just an extension of that passion. It's been a great part of my life.
Very cool. I mean, when you talked about some of the ideas or concepts or whatever that weren't particular in alignment with what you felt like you needed to be, did you, for instance, grow up in a religious household by any chance, or is that any of the things you've had to deal with?
Not necessarily religious, but it's like my parents are immigrants from Iran, and they have, I feel like it's a common thing, and I have a lot of Iranians that have grown up here kind of have this idea that the parents that came here in that generation were very focused on succeeding and getting their kids into the right line of work, and so it was just a focus on a certain career path, and that just wasn't for me. I'm just weird, and I have my own way. But so it's like you have this internal dialogue telling you like, this is what I'm excited about, and then you have this external voice that's telling you should be doing this, and you could, and if you do that, this bad thing is going to happen, and you integrate these ideas, and even if you're going towards what's exciting for you, you end up self-sabotaging a lot of stuff. And that's what I found with my music career, that there would be situations that wouldn't manifest the way I wanted it to, and it was confusing, like setbacks, or like not bands breaking up, or a lot of relationship stuff, and so I was just like, I needed to figure out how to end this cycle, and to make things become more in a flow, more aligned. So it's been a long process, but it's been awesome. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. I guess my last one with that would be with, given what you mentioned about sort of the want of immigrant parents to have the best for their children, and in particular, that means that there's a particular career path involved. What did they initially feel about you pursuing music? Were they like, "Oh, come on now, really, music?"
Oh man, that's a long conversation. But yeah, basically they were not happy. I mean, they are very supportive, loving parents, but not very. It's been a very difficult, I would say, a challenge for them to accept that I've taken this path.
I bet.
And now it's I've been doing this for a while now, so it's not those issues aren't so hot anymore. It's fine. It's all good. But growing up, it was definitely not easy for them.
I bet.
To say the least. There's a lot of identity associated with what your kid does. So you want your kid to make you proud and make you seem, like you were a good parent, and you want to feel like you did the right thing, and so it's a lot tied into it, and it's a lot of pressure for someone just who wants to be aligned with their inspiration.
Right. I bet, man. Well, shit. What's going on for the rest of the year, man? You got some gigs, some projects, some recordings. What's happening?
Oh man. Okay, so I'm in my Phil Collins transition right now, which is. Which I say jokingly, Phil Collins is fine. I'm not gonna talk badly about him. But anyways, so I've been actually playing guitar. I picked up guitar, and I'm more focused on writing and working on my own band right now.
Cool.
So basically, just writing a lot, and musically, that's all that I'm focused on is birthing this new project, which I'm finally I've settled in on my taking this path, I guess, being a band leader in a sense. So
nice. Do you have a name for it yet, or?
Satya Sena is the name of the band.
Okay. How do you spell that?
Satya. That's Satya, and Sena is Sena.
Okay, Satya Sena. Gotcha. Okay, very cool. Well, I look forward to hearing some of this stuff coming out and see where you take it, man.
Absolutely. I look forward to hearing it as well.
Excellent, man. Well, Pej Mon, thanks for talking to me, man. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to you hopefully coming back through New York, or if I'm out on the West Coast, maybe I can catch up with you.
Hit me up anytime, man. Thanks for reaching out, and thanks for your curiosity around drumming, and all the interviews and stuff. I feel like I want to know more about what you're doing too. We didn't get to talk about you, man.
That's all right, man. That's a whole nother episode. I will say that in 3 weeks I'm expecting my first child. So I've got 2018, and it's a boy. So
wow, congratulations.
That's what's coming up in 3 weeks or less, or maybe just a little bit more. But 2018 is going to be an interesting year for me too.
Wow, awesome, man.
Right on, man. Well, Pej Mon, thanks for talking to me, bro.
All right, brother. Talk to you later.
Thanks, man. Thanks as always for tuning into the Crash Bang Boom podcast. Please subscribe either on iTunes and or on the YouTube channel. Thanks to my sponsor, NewOrleansRecordPress.com. Thanks to Pej Mon for talking to me, man. It was great talking to him and catching up with him and picking his brain about the many processes involved in playing so many crazy styles of music. It's all about the drums, man. So we'll catch you on the next one. All right. Crash Bang Boom.